Welcome to this early look at Strategic Command World War One. Soon to be released game at this point, so this is a pre-release version. There are some minor, like a new starting scenario and some other stuff still to come, but I think all this is a feature complete and hopefully mostly bugs killed version of the game. It is very much built on the traditional Strategic Command engine, map, all of that, but set up for World War One, and we're going to be playing as the Germans. Why are we going to be playing as the Germans? Well, there's multiple reasons. One, Germany does just seem to be popular with my channel, but the way the game's set up, you're also playing as Austria, is sort of the driver as well. Germany and Austria is the driver of World War One. Most of the other nations are reactionary to it, so that's part of it. Also, Germany lost. Germany lost in World War Two. So, like, let's try to think of how could the Allies have won in World War II. Just wonder, what would that have looked like? What could they have done? Oh, well, wait a minute. We can go look at history. Well, how could the Allies or the Entente have won in World War II? How could they have possibly done it? Oh, wait a minute. We just can look at history and see how they did it. And I've read a lot of that, history on both wars, watched documentaries and all that, and I'm very interested in all that. But what I'm also interested in is not crazy speculation, what if aliens showed up kind of thing, but what would it take for, say, Germany to have won the First World War or the Second? That is also an element that fascinates me. Okay, so that's why Germany again. 3 good reasons. Okay, so deploy your armies for victory. Most of your armies are now mobilized, but some units remain to be deployed. Some options on deploying these are: deploy to the west, strike hard on the west, strengthen the forces in the east, to deploy in the south and send them to take part in the conquest of Serbia. Choose wisely, because it is probably the most important decision you will have to make in the coming conflict. If you select auto select. Okay, so we have some units here that we can deploy. Hey, thanks for... Hey, Ari! Oh, good. I was hoping you would show up for this, because I know that you like the First World War. And this is a new game coming out. And thanks, Arno, for hosting. Alright, so... okay, what am I going to say here? Well, I'm thinking about it, because I've almost said 2 different things. No, I don't think there's a solid conclusion, at least in my mind, that I can make. One of the things that tips the balance against Germany is that they add enemies to the war. And so, generally speaking, in the interwar period, they call World War One the Great War. Obviously, they never call it World War One because their World War II hadn't happened yet, so they didn't need to put a number to it. Yeah, Italy betrays the Central Powers alliance, absolutely. Portugal trades with Britain, yes, and Germany should stop and then declared war on them, yes. So you see, like Harry's pointing out, Germany adds a lot of enemies. Now, it had been traditional in Europe that for weaker states, you could sort of kind of march across their territory. Partially, it's that they, didn't necessarily, could stop you. They could hinder you. They could delay you. So Germany really sort of kind of in its sort of Schlieffen plan expected to be able to more easily access Belgian infrastructure and railways to attack into France. that wasn't what happened, and as these plans sort of ignored the development of nationalism that really spread out of the French and later Napoleonic wars. We can see nationalism earlier than that, most assuredly, but it's really sort of got its modern popular expression coming out of the French Revolution, um, which isn't that far away from Schlieffen and developing his plans. Now, there were some important questions asked during World War II, and Willie asked, I don't know if we know to what person, and I don't know, this may be apocryphal, but Willie asked, can't we just send the trains in the other direction? Well, as my friend IKB would say, train timetables are an arcane art that even he doesn't understand. And so, no, you can't just send the trains in the other direction. Now, when they sort of tell the Kaiser this, one of two things, and I don't know which is the truth, and it would be interesting for somebody like Airy to look into it. Were they lying to the Kaiser, or had they just failed that badly? The German general staff I'm talking about at this time. And again, a lot of viewers, both here on Twitch, which are just 5 right now, but you on YouTube, often think of Germany as a unified thing. It really wasn't. This is really more the Prussian general staff. Bavaria has its sort of own army. Hanover sort of does too. They've mostly got the idea of having the same calibers down for their rifles and artillery pieces, but they are, Bavaria's buying its own rifles, Prussia's buying its own rifles, things like that. There isn't an entirely, single monolithic thing called the army. It's a multi-phase. But the German general staff is most assuredly around. It is basically the inheritor of the traditions of Frederick the Great, Frederick III of Prussia. Now, did they fail so badly as not to have a different train deployment when, to go east? The whole Schlieffen plan was to rapidly crush the French because they thought of them as the easier victim, quite honestly, because remember the I know we're going on to a lot of this, and I will try to do a time mark when the actual gameplay starts. But you had the Franco-Prussian War, in which there is a very quick, shall we say, smashing of the sort of French army, and then a long siege of Paris that sort of continues that war for a while. I am not an expert on this, and I can't, go into too much more detail on that, quite honestly, off the top of my head, but I do know that. So they thought that they could do that again, and Schlieffen, Clausewitz, who is before Schlieffen, definitely studies the French invasion, Napoleonic invasion of Russia, and realizing that Russia is not going to be a quick crush them. You're not going to march to Moscow and go, we won, and go home. You could do that theoretically. And I think quite readily do that, maybe, but that doesn't mean you win the war. That just means you march to Moscow and march back to home. So they, and industrially, infrastructurally, Paris is the center of France. Moscow sort of is too, but there's so much more of Russia. So they want to quickly put their western flank, secure that with a victory, and then take their time at going against the east. Not a bad plan if you can implement it. But one, you have to have, at some level, the cooperation of the Belgians. Either that they will let you through, or two, they're not going to resist that hard. I mean, there might be resistance, but they're not going to resist that hard. They resist very hard in the First World War. Hey, thank you, Arno. And people later on YouTube can go and check out the Schlieffen Plan. Now, so they're thinking that, they can get through. Oh, yeah. The Belgians really, really sort of doggedly fight and doggedly resist the whole German move through. I sort of want to phrase it that way. It becomes an invasion once the Germans really occupy Belgium. But my understanding is they're really looking at that as simply a wanting to move through it at first, not we're going to carve up Belgium. No, we're just coming on through. We're going to crush and then go home. So we see that as a situation there that Belgium does not let them just do that, and that throws the whole thing off. Other things that the Germans are very aware of but have not really taken into account. One, I'm sure they must have had military observers. There's a tradition of it. I just don't know specifically any of it. But they don't really seem to have taken into account the Russo-Japanese War and the changes in warfare from the Franco-Prussian War to the Russo-Japanese war. Primarily trench warfare. The machine gun is being used out there. The barbed wire is starting to be used out there. And so you're getting trench warfare. And they don't really see that. Now, early on, and I've read Infantry Attacks by Erwin Rommel 3 or 4 times. And you can read about his early days in going through Belgium. It's very much like what they sort of kind of thought. Maybe not necessarily lots of troops lined up in neat Napoleonic lines doing volley fire, but yeah, sort of kind of that, and rushing around with bayonets, rapidly attacking, he's a lieutenant at the time, so he isn't, moving battalions or divisions. He's moving platoons and companies, and sometimes rallying groups of straggling soldiers from different units to attack places. And it is sort of war of maneuver. But one, the Belgians don't have many machine guns. The French really don't either. They have some, most assuredly, but they don't have, in the term, many at August 1914. So you have that time, but you have the problem of the Belgians resisting, and part of that resistance, and part of just literally the previous existing infrastructure, is the railways don't connect well through Belgium. So you have logistical problems, and particularly in ammunition. To keep up the pace of combat that you're seeing, you're expelling massive amounts of ammunition. Sure, a lot of it's from rifles, but artillery ammunition particularly. And so to keep that going, to keep that momentum, to keep that firepower, they are just not able to do that, to push forward in that. Sorry, Ari, I haven't been reading your comments just yet. So they run out of steam. I do firmly believe that had that sort of logistical element been taken care of a bit better through Brussels. I don't know exactly what that means, whether that means better prepared. There were railway troops to some degree, but better prepared. And I don't mean armored trains. I mean like troops set up to repair railroads. Better set up and repair railroads to keep the supplies moving, or just simply not as difficult resistance by um, the Belgians. They probably could have pushed through to Paris. I know there's the Miracle on the Marne and the supposed, and there were taxi cabs ferrying troops to the front and city buses. I don't think that's how the majority of the troops get to the okay, I gotta read some of that. So they get the majority of troops up there, but it's just the French are able to plug the gap at the time that the Germans, and again, I know Ari also knows a lot of this. At the time that the French or the Germans were running out of ammunition steam, I would say. So okay, so my plan with this playthrough, I don't know how far we're going to get, but my plan is to say, okay, what if the German general staff did prepare plans for either Russia only or Russia with a possible French involvement, but we're going to, Kaiser, do you want us to, plan A or plan B kind of thing? Plan A, attack France hard and then go after Russia. Plan B, set up defensive positions against France and go hard against the Russians. We're going to go with plan B. I know we've got here a long time, but so we're going to come here. We're going to put down a general in the east, or a corps, or army HQ. Yeah, let's put you here. Now, I've only sort of played the opening sort of moves here. I haven't played it through to any decent conclusion. What I'm going to try to do, okay, that Central Powers deployment is complete. What I'm going to try to do is sort of crush the troops in the Warsaw area and take Warsaw, sort of kind of along the Tannenberg line. Okay, now, and I'm going to have to move the time markers back. In my opinion, and it is definitely historical fact, that the Serbians used a terroristic attack against the Austrian monarchy to kill the Archduke Ferdinand and his wife. Was she killed or is she just there? I know she was there in the car. At least kill Ferdinand. Pretty sure she got killed too. To assassinate them. It was the Black Hand, a sort of Bosnian terrorist group that Serbia sponsored. Serbia and gave them the really nice, really brand new, really high tech Browning or FN, whatever you want to call them, pistols to go do the incident. Something that was really sort of high tech. We think of it the most modern HK pistols of whatever day you are that they were handed, that were available, but weren't, shall we say, commonly available in the Balkans to pick up at your local gun store or your local hardware store, wherever they might be selling guns, because they did sell guns like that in the olden days. They weren't, just something you're picking up, and they definitely came via Serbian forces. So they kicked this whole thing off. It was, in my opinion, an entirely justifiable reaction once that sort of comes to power, and once diplomacy fails to deal with reactions with Serbia, that then there's the military invasion of Serbia, which then brings in the Russians, which then brings in the Germans in its defensive pact. It was known, I don't know how publicly, that Russia and France had mutual defense agreements, so that was sort of like, yeah, and France hadn't come out very publicly and said, oh, no, we're not coming to Russia's aid. Don't drag us into this thing. So everybody knew that France was in it. So Germany has to attack or be ready to fight France. Doesn't have to drive to Paris, but has to be ready to fight France. It's only them going into Belgium that really starts to sort of go, say, Germany's being really naughty. Both the Austrians and the Germans do what we would call war crimes today on civilian populations. And I'm not just talking about, hey, there's civilians in a city, they're besieging the city. I mean executing people just because they have them in their, possession. Whether it is, we're going to, shoot X number of civilians for every partisan, for every time partisans kill some soldiers or something. I'm talking about like reprisals and other organized and specifically sanctioned bad actions, not just individual soldiers or small groups of soldiers doing bad things to civilians. We're talking about higher ups, maybe not way at the tippy top, I don't know, but definitely at the mid levels and higher, divisional levels and higher approved of actions. Okay, we know we're talking a lot, but this is again a war that I don't deal with a lot, and I think really important. And I can die happy if I can rave about World War One video. I love to be the IKB of World War One. Okay, well, keep reading up on World War One and keep giving us interesting facts there, Ari. Okay, so, and here's why I think this is so super important. You have periods in history, and so you have the 18th century. Now you can maybe figure out when it starts and when it stops on a calendar. But the 18th century really starts in 1688, 1688, 1689, and really ends in 1789 with the French Revolution. That is the 18th century. Then you have the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic era, which is 1789 to 1815. Okay, with the Battle of Waterloo ends the Napoleonic era and his flight from the battle into the ship, the Bully Ruffin or the Bellefonds, where he seeks refuge on a British ship of the line. So that ends the Napoleonic era in 1815. The 19th century starts a little before that, before the Battle of Waterloo, but also in 1815 with the Congress of Vienna. That starts the 19th century. The 19th century ends with the beginning of World War I in 1914. So again, it's about a 100-year period, and whether we want to look at, here in August 1st, or when we want to look at, and I forget right offhand the date, you are no IKB. And so you have, or a little earlier with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and leading up to this. But you have, that sort of encapsulates the 19th century. The 20th century really sort of starts with the beginning of World War I and continues it until basically the fall of the Berlin Wall or the fall of the Soviet Union. Sort of it's more recent, a little harder to put that in there, but definitely, put the pin in there, is definitely by the fall of the Soviet Union. And I'm forgetting the exact year date that the mayor of Moscow, Boris Yeltsin, takes over the Russian White House, the Soviet White House, which is different than the American one, and holds out against counterattacks or the Russian White House, counterattacked by the Soviet forces, whatever. And that's the fall of the Soviet Union. So that gets you the end of the 20th century. And so that all comes from the reaction of World War I and everybody's reaction to it. World War II is a reaction to World War I. The Cold War is sort of dealing with post-World War II conflicts. Then we get into, I don't know what's setting up this next period, whether we can talk about the sort of Clinton years as sort of an inter-period thing, and then the start of the Islamic terrorist wars with the attack under Bush, or whether we want to look earlier to that, because there were like the Cobalt Towers under Clinton or something. I don't know where we want to look in. What I want to join you and AKB in this game. What Boris? Oh no, I thought you were talking about Boris. No. Well, we're not going to do multi-people right now. I'm just not set up for this. So we're not. We'll maybe be doing that before. Last toy. This is my life now. Well, I hope that's good. Yes. No, we're not talking about Bulgarian. I did know Boris was the Tsar later in World War II, but I did not know who the Tsar was at this time in Bulgaria. So that sort of sets up that this is why World War I is so important. And as a lot of viewers who have been around for a long time know that I like to talk about history, but don't get a lot of chance to talk about World War I, because quite honestly, it is hard to do in a war game and make it fun, because for the most part, the Western Front is not fun. We can see the sort of the romance of Lawrence of Arabia, or which is mostly going on the Western Front, the Red Baron and Eddie Rickenbacker and other pilots dogfighting over the trenches and their fighters. So there are sort of exciting elements to it, but trying to do this on a larger scale is difficult. Okay, our successful invasion of Serbia. Okay, basically we need to crush Serbia, and I totally agree with this. Delaying the conflict with the U.S. or with the UK. Violating the neutrality of Belgium, the Netherlands, or Denmark will automatically bring the British into the war. Sending any naval unit, including submarines, anywhere near the British coast into the North Sea or the Atlantic would also provoke them. I would dispute that, because I think there's very, just my historical read on it is that had there been no Belgian action, and had the German High Seas Fleet gone through the Straits of Dover, threatening the French, I don't think that would have brought the British into the war. I don't think. So take care of any hope to delay Britain's entry into the war without provocation. Okay, those are very important. Importance of the Netherlands. Germany imperial war economy relies on goods imported from neutral Netherlands. It is therefore vital that we keep the Dutch friendly to us, using diplomacy if necessary, as this is solely due to her friendly, neutral status that she can import goods that would otherwise be deprived to us. If the Netherlands were able to enter the war on either side, or swing towards the Entente, then we would lose these vital imports, and our people would face food shortages. Helmut von Moltke, Chief of the General Staff. Okay, again, and I'm going to put a timestamp for the start of this. One thing that is little known, that once World War II breaks out, the British start what would be considered illegal under the terms of international law generally at the time, to what would be the term, waylay ships at sea and inspect them for quote unquote contraband cargoes that would be possibly going to Germany. And I want to use Germany, not the Axis. They would and then go on and look and see what they were and where they were destined. Anywhere sort of around here, and I'm talking World War II. So they grabbed Italian ships, Dutch ships, and impounded them if they thought the cargoes, after being delivered to the Netherlands or to Italy, would have been sent on to Germany. Now, they weren't really grabbing Italian ships in the Mediterranean, to my knowledge. This was up around here. And there was a lot of diplomatic dispute. This is before the fall of France, so before Germany was really at war with the Netherlands or Belgium. So this, I think, is an additional thing that really sort of tells the Nazis, and quite honestly, I've read a lot of books, which now he wasn't really, he was in the inner circle, but not in the war planning inner circle, like Albert Speer's Inside the Third Reich, leading up to the invasion of the Netherlands. He's still, Hitler's architect. So I really don't know what all of the thought behind why they invaded the Netherlands. But I think it sort of gets back to this, is that the Netherlands weren't going to be allowed to import and export things that then possibly Germany could get. So we're looking at a situation where that becomes a moot question, and I think to a point it's Britain's fault. I don't know how much it is. I don't know whether they would have invaded anyways, but just the fact that they weren't allowed to remain completely neutral, with the idea of, hey, yeah, we'll sell to the British, we'll sell to the Germans, we'll sell to anybody, don't mess with our ships. Go ahead and, bomb the railways on the German side of the border or something, but don't bomb us, and so that really makes the idea of having the Netherlands be sort of a neutral, as well as like the Danes and others, become no longer a factor. Okay, now before we start, I'm going to scroll back up here on area to see if there's anything really important I should address. You can go through Kickstarter, the whole snipers. Yes, we know that. You wrote a lot, and I hope people read it fully and industrialized completely. Feared Russia greatly. They feared that if they were fully industrialized. Yeah, Russia is a very powerful nation, most assuredly, industrially. It just couldn't keep up with the needs of its greater army. Let's see, how have I been called this war and nearly was dead on the year that it happened. Europe is today powder keg, right? They set the stage of politics. Yeah, the Balkans Wars did. It goes into the failing of the Ottoman Empire and springs of nationalism, as well as power vacuums, because a lot of the region of the Balkans wasn't very well industrialized, wasn't very well nationalized into, these are, like a unified people, because we can look at Yugoslavia as the whole thing. So Austria is pushing into it as imperial need, or imperial desire, shall we say, but they also have real security needs as well. Yes, Bulgarians felt cheated in the First Balkan War. They wanted more land. Yes, and so you get a lot of those questions there, but so that's the cost from it. Okay, so now we're going to start this thing. So this will be the time start here, what, about 30 minutes into this video. Okay, now the important stuff is going to happen in the east, but we're going to start with the west. I have played, like I say, a little bit of this. These guys are going to come forward down to here, take out Luxembourg, which spots them, which is an important thing to spot. These guys come here. I like now that they're a little better informing us of zones of control. Okay, now the AI is really good with this, so we are going to attempt to be good with this as well. Not the greatest result. Probably should have done this one first, but either way. So now these guys are going to come here, and what we're going to do is swap these two units out, and then attack again. And then hopefully fully take out. Okay, we just killed a French corps. Yes, for some losses, but no losses of a complete corps. So we did that. So we're going to try to be... Oh, how would you feel about joining a call and having me ranting about World War I? Not right now, Harry. Maybe in later episodes. We're going to move into here. SAR, mind, and hold that. But we may do that in the future. Okay, so now we have a pretty solid line of defenses. We're holding a couple of forts. We're pretty well dug in. There is a good mechanic that we will be seeing, that if you stay inactive in a hex for a while, it will start to develop trenches and then into fortifications. So that is fairly good. Now, rating 7, rating 6, rating 5, rating 7. But we can't really operate anything now, so we're going to move these guys up to make sure that we have core HQs. So that's what we're doing. We still have... Oh, and we might as well, just in case they decide to come through, and I don't think they would come through here. We do have some defenses here. Though, if we had the ability to move everything east, I would be moving a lot of these forces east. Okay, now... Okay, now that we see there, I didn't want to be surprised by these guys. Oh damn, they got surprised by them. Oh shoot, oh well. Damn, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to hit here. Damn, I lost a whole attack with this. I not spotted that. Okay, I really wanted to grind that down further. You move to Sarajevo with that. To a point we're just grinding on these, and that did not work out well. Okay, now this is tricky here. This is very, very tricky. We're going to be facing a significant Russian attack. These guys, let's move into here, see if they spot anything. No, come to here. Okay. There are Russian units in here, I know this. Okay. I want to hold that oil field. I don't know if the horses will do that well enough. Okay, I think in the fortress the cavalry will be able to hold out. Okay, I'm hoping that will be... At times I have moved up to here to try to hold this railway junction. And then watch the Russians get move into here and sort of get that cut off. So I think that's probably our most aggressive thing we can do. Yeah. Amazing video of song written by German soldiers during the Great War. Yes, we have a very thin line out here, most assuredly. What you will see in coming turns is, and we have currently no ability to, we have 0 MPP for everybody. So we can't build anything, but we will see mobilization happening, basically units being put on the map through events that covers historical mobilization. No, the thin red line's British, and mostly started in Crimea, I think, that term where we first really see it. Okay, we spotted them. I just didn't want to bump into them accidentally. We're going to move to there. I don't know if we're going to attack with them. Is there maybe nobody there? Okay, unfortunately we can't move the artillery up and attack this turn. I don't think we can hold Tilsit. I think the Russians will take that. You have to be somewhat practical, because as you can see here, there are 4 corps here. The Russian army, especially at the beginning, was not very strong. This is the thin red line. No, I don't get the pun, I'm sorry. Let's threaten down into here with our horses. Or focus heavily on Serbia. It left the Russians to the Germans practically. Yeah, what I want to do is crush Serbia to free up the Austrian army to fight the Russians. I think by, I don't know if we can, but by just letting this fester forever, I think is going to be more of a problem for us. Okay, he would have hit there, No, didn't get as good a jolt. Got it about as we thought it might. Okay, I wish we could have used the artillery moving up there. Just gonna put air up now. I think they're having more trouble coming through the forest, so we're gonna come here to try to hold this line here. I think we can maybe hold Memel. Now we're gonna send our submarines up to here, to here, to here, just as reconnaissance. We have more subs in the Baltic? No. Okay. I quite honestly I haven't played out, but I presume there's some sort of Russian fleet up here. Might as well try to take that on. I don't think historically they had any significant amounts of submarines. I could be wrong. Well, what's a DN? Oh, Rhineland Dreadnought. Okay, as opposed to battleship. I didn't know. I know the term dreadnought. I didn't know you did it as DNs. Okay, well. Let's move you up here as a screening force. Okay, good. Yes, I'm basically ignoring the British Navy. Move these dreadnoughts. I don't. Jackie Fisher is, of course, the guy who creates the term dreadnought and basically creates the first dreadnought in Britain. What's okay? I normally do CA for cruiser and CL for light cruiser. Don't always know about that. Yeah, I do know of the movie. I've not seen that movie, and I don't know why they call it the Thin Red Line. Like I say, the Thin Red Line is sort of around Balakava and the British holding out. I don't know if I can explain the difference between battleship and dreadnought. Or what it means here. I don't know. Because a battleship, the term battleship, should be fully and properly called a ship of the line of battle. Okay, or a battleship of the line would maybe be another way to say it. That's what it is. The line of battle was the idea of a line of ships sort of like this, all sailing, and originally literally sailing in a sort of an impenetrable line. These are, you know, the big first through third rate battleships of the line. Then you have, as steam is coming into existence, you have still wooden ships, often starting with steam, starting to have iron framing for the hulls, but wooden hulls. Then eventually, after the American Civil War, you start to get proper iron-hulled ships. Now, most of those ships, what is it? Drachnefel has a really great series on YouTube that talks about a lot of these things. Much of the ships, the guns, some of the guns could shoot on one side, and some of the guns could only shoot on the other side. So as you move, let's say, a line of battle, because the whole idea is you have this line of ships that are moving along, then you have the enemy here, so that this ship, this ship, this ship, and this ship could all fire at this one ship. But a lot of the ships were defined as, so we need guns on each side of the ship to be able to shoot, because, well, what if they're over here and all the guns are over, you know, if you only put guns on one side of your ship, you're going to have a problem. So you have to put guns on both sides of your ship. So if you want to be able to shoot 10 guns at this ship, you also have to, it takes 20 guns because you put 10 guns on this side of the ship. Well, with Jackie Fisher, he was a British admiral, comes up with the first one called Dreadnought. It was the name of the ship, in which the main guns are in a turret that can be rotated to fire to each side of the ship. So one, you have fewer guns. Two, you can have bigger guns. Three, they're moved to the center line of the ship, so that, again, you can have bigger guns so that they're not unbalancing the ship. And so if you, say, have, and guns are expensive, especially big ones. So if you have 6 guns on the ship, say in 3 turrets, 2 per turret, they can point to either side of the ship. Most of the time, you don't have ships coming at both sides when you're fighting in battle of line. So you can point all your main guns to one side or all of your main guns to the other side. Now, they definitely had turrets in the center lines of ships pre-Dreadnought, but it really isn't quite as perfected, shall we say, as when Dreadnought comes out. So I don't know whether this is a pre-Dreadnought battleship. I just don't know. I don't know what Kaiser Wilhelm II battleship is. I don't know. I see Rhineland Dreadnought, Helgoland Dreadnought. So I presume that these are not pre-Dreadnoughts. I presume they're Dreadnoughts by this thing. I don't know if this means that this is a pre-Dreadnought battleship, like the Schleswig-Holstein. And yes, you can see the Schleswig-Holstein does have a few big turrets on it, but you'll see a lot of guns running along the sides of the ships in smaller gun mounts. So I don't know what they're using, because I'm just not familiar with the Deutschland. I know there was a different Deutschland in World War II that gets renamed to, I forget what. You know, this is on the Russian, lots of prisoners, the average Russian soldier still fought fiercely, yes. Okay, so I'm sorry, I can't answer that better now. I don't know. Okay, now of course this is just dealing with sort of Europe and the Middle East, doesn't deal with Vorbeck's East Africa campaign. Okay, yes, let's accept these naval movements. The High Seas Fleet is moving out to aggressively go after whatever Russian, I keep wanting to start to say Soviet, but whatever Russian fleet that may be here. I want to crush them if at all possible and turn this into a German lake, at least militarily. So we are going to, we can fiddle with the Turks, but they're not at war yet with anybody, but I can't build anything, so I'm just ignoring them for the moment. SMS, the Silesian will never lose the battle. Okay, thank you. Yes, we'll end this turn. Luxembourg surrenders, gives us what, about 25 MPP, okay. Okay, Commander of the High Seas Fleet, Admiral von Engunhol. Must not have been very distinguished because I've never heard of him. Our Mittelmeer Division, whose flagship is the Goeben battle cruiser, is currently in the Mediterranean sailing towards Constantinople. It is recommended that the Goeben continue to Constantinople will be taken into service with the Ottoman Navy and renamed Yazev Sultan Salim. If you decide to not send the Goeben to Constantinople, it'll instead sail for Paolo in the Adriatic, where she will serve alongside the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Now that might be a very good idea. It really might be. But if we turn it over to the Ottomans, we are more likely to make them friendly to us. So we're going to do that. I think for the giving up of a battle cruiser, it's worth to getting friends. We're at the end of the very first turn. Hello, Comfy Trainwreck. Good to have you here. Don't forget to follow the channel if you're new here. I don't recognize your name. Okay, Chancellor Konrad von Hohensdorf, General Bohum Emil. He goes on later to be he's an Austrian general, as you can tell here, but goes on to be a general in the Third Reich as well, or one of the oldest generals. And again, we are playing Strategic Command World War One. Currently, we will be doing Black Ice, Hearts of Iron 3 or Hearts of Iron 4 later. Okay, the 4th and 7th Corps of our 2nd Army are currently en route to Novi Sad and Temenschenberg near the Serbian border, where they will deploy shortly to take part of the invasion of Serbia. However, deploying them there may leave us with insufficient forces facing the Russians. Therefore, it has been suggested that we send them to the Russian border instead. Unfortunately, sending them the fight again will delay. I want to crush Serbia. This may be the wrong move. I don't know historically what happened. Austro-Hungary deploys the 2nd Army to fight Serbia. But, and there's very good reason, trust me, French mobilization continues. Very good reason to send reinforcements, but partially is I think it will take longer than this turn to get up there. Russian mobilization continues. I think if we can hold here, and it's a big if, Austro-Hungarian mobilization continues. We can see more units are coming onto the map. Okay, so we're getting 30 MPP from Sweden, 10 from Denmark, 18 from Norway, 0 from Austria-Hungary. Mobilization is costing us 75, and we're getting 65 food supplies via neutral. Netherlands, nothing special, just its normal MPP are coming in for Austria-Hungary. Ottoman Empire collects a whopping 15 MPP. Yeah, no African front. Yep, I was afraid that they'd get cut off and we may lose that cavalry corps there, or we may be able to fight it clear. I just wanted to threaten places. I wish I could have cut these 2 railways off and trapped there. The whole idea is I want to take Warsaw, hopefully kill as many units in there as I can, but as we're seeing, they're pulling other units out. And if nothing else on that front is to shorten the battle lines. Like I said, I didn't think we could hold Tilsit. I've tried a couple of times and you just get hammered. Not that it can't be held. Let's see if we can zoom in a little more. Yeah, there we go. I'd rather lose this town than lose the oil fields behind it. And then we're probably going to lose the cavalry corps. Yeah, well, maybe we'll hold that cavalry corps. Is it tree? Oh, no. They're going to crush it. So we lost the cavalry corps. I think this line will hold up here. Because of the river and whatnot. So we're behind it enough. Hoping we can hold the oil. Passive aggressive is so far sort of working here. Yes, I would like to hold Memel as well. Well, I'd like to hold everything, but Yeah, sort of afraid of them pushing in around there, but... Okay, moving him was a mistake to that close. I should have moved one of these other ones up further and kept him slightly further back. You see the mechanism here, there's little squiggly lines around, if you will, is them digging in, which will make them harder and harder to get out. And they will dig themselves in deeper and deeper as time goes on. The arrival of thousands of refugees from Galatia spreads fear throughout Austro-Hungary. UK seizes the Ottoman dreadnought, the Sultan Osman I, which is still in building in Britain. Now, I don't think they would have... Okay, the Ottomans are outraged at the seizure. I think this whole event is wrong because we have not gone into Belgium. Britain is not yet at war. I don't think they would have seized it. I may be wrong about that. But, okay, good. See, I knew we were getting some forces here. If we can get in here and hold those towns and objectives, that would be great. Okay, yep. 3rd Cavalry Corps destroyed. Thousands of refugees. That's what happened historically, but also Britain was at war historically at this point. So, okay. General Chief Helmut von Moltke, given our weakness in East Prussia, we could greatly strengthen our position there by bringing Paul von Hindenburg out of retirement and giving him field command there, yes. To assist him in his duties, Erich Ludendorff can serve as chief of staff. They work well together. Ludendorff, as we learn later on, because he is another sort of different than the Nazis, but another sort of racial extremist. He tries to create his own party, but it doesn't work so well. The Nazis are just too powerful. Providing Hindenburg and Ludendorff with the necessary logistical support will cost us 200 MPP at 50 MPP for 4 turns. Would you like to point? Yes. Okay, nice picture. That would be Hindenburg, and that's Ludendorff. They did good. Okay, huge numbers of refugees are fleeing from areas of fighting and need food, supplies. If we are to prevent any further impact on our national morale, it would be wise to invest in caring for these. Yes, we will do so. It helps national morale, which helps our units. Okay. So, we're going to end, not the stream, you guys here keep hanging out, but we're going to end this episode on YouTube. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Love to see you around more often. And, of course, love to hear your comments either about my historical analysis or about the game that's soon to be released. See you next time for more historical gaming.